So if you've been on the internet at all lately, you'll notice that sourdough is bubbling up. Everyone's baking it. But sometimes the simplest things can be a little intimidating. I am going to figure out the calmest, most nourishing, happiest way to bake sourdough bread. For that, I'm going to call my dear friend and wonderful colleague, Margaret Eby. And by call, I mean video chat. Can you tell me about how you start a starter just from scratch?
The very simple, easiest way is you mix an equal amount of flour and water and you leave it out on your counter.
And then the next day...
You let go.
Yeah, you just let go. And then the next day you look at your beige goo that you have made, you discard roughly half of it, and then you replace that half with more flour and water. You keep doing that every day until you start seeing bubbles and it starts smelling that sort of like fresh, fruity, yeasty thing. And eventually you'll notice it rising and falling, and that's when you know you have an active starter.
It's breathing like a monster.
It's breathing like a monster.
Okay, so that's pretty simple. It's just a little patience.
There is also, if you are impatient and you have a little bit of commercial yeast, like from a packet, you can kickstart a starter by stirring together flour, water, and like 1/4 of a teaspoon of yeast. That'll get a starter going a lot faster because rather than harvesting the like wild yeast of the air, you're just using the yeast from the packet.
In terms of troubleshooting, so if you wake up in the morning and your starter has like a layer of hooch, like some boozy smelling liquid, and it's separated and you want to throw it away because you feel like you failed, what's going on?
It just basically means your starter is hungry. It's just the alcohol that's being produced by the yeast. I usually just pour it off the top and then you just feed it as usual. The only real signs of trouble are streaks of orange or pink. And if it's growing like actual mold, like you would see on like a lump of cheese that you forgot for a long time, then I would throw it out.
Now, I think the first bread I ever made was focaccia, which felt like a really nice way to ease into bread. Do you have like a style of bread that you feel like is a good starter loaf?
I love focaccia. That's a great idea. There are lots of recipes out there for like sort of simple beginner sourdough loaf. What I always tell people is to just sort of ease in that way and make it a couple different times and just kind of really get a feel for it.
You've made your own starter, it's bubbling, you have a warm and cozy home and it's been 72 hours and you feel like you got some good bubble, good growth. How do you know when it's ready to actually bake with, not just offer good tangy flavor, but actually leaven bread?
What a good question. I love this question. There is like a very great way to do it that feels like a second grade science experiment.
Perfect.
You fill a cup of water and then you just drop whatever, a tablespoon, let's say, of starter into the glass of water. And if it floats, it'll leaven bread and you're good to go. And if it doesn't, then if you've fed it a while ago, then you should probably feed it again. If you've just fed it, you should probably just like let it hang out and like eat through the flour and water you just fed it.
Should you let it hang out like a few more hours and test again, or like a few more days and test again?
It's definitely should be more of a matter of hours, not days. If it's just starting out, you might need to feed it a couple more times and go through a couple more rounds. But if you know that it's rising and falling, then it's probably more a matter of hours than days.
If you start a starter on your own, no friend or bakery gave you a little sample of theirs, is it gonna take like a week or two till it's ready to bake?
Usually it takes about a week in my experience. You just kind of have to keep going and check in on it. Don't get dispirited because like it'll definitely be there. You can catch it in the air. It's all around us, not in a sinister way though, in a nice way.
It's always watching.
It is the surveillance state, but tasty, so.